Construction these days is defined by shortages in manpower, in products, in scheduling timelines. It's a problem that every developer must cope with to thrive, especially so in New York City, the country's largest non-residential building market. Joining us today is Ron Innocent, Director of Project Management with Denham Wolf Real Estate Services, who has seen this movie before in his 20 plus years in the industry. Ron, welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for having me, John. Great to be here.
Ron, let's jump right into it. To what extent are shortages in products and manpower impacting your firm's projects, and how is this situation different from what it's been in the past?
Well, as a consulting firm focused on providing real estate consulting services to nonprofits, the construction projects that Denham Wolf manages are primarily in the commercial real estate space. We have multiple construction projects that started prior to the pandemic, and we also have some that have started during the pandemic and after the time of the initial shutdown of construction activities for a period of time in the early stages of the pandemic. And the major issues that we're coming across essentially have twofold. It's the schedule impact, delays around getting materials, delays to completing the project, having an impact on our clients whom are taking these major construction projects, and then of course the financial implications associated with that. So we're involved in helping to figure out how to best deal with labor shortages, how to best bring teams together to figure out how to get around the issues. And we're helping our client and our project teams look at options, look at opportunities for either adjusting the sequencing of the work, looking at alternate materials to figure out how to get around the schedule impacts. As you could imagine, there are major financial implications to construction delays, particularly for our clients who have, for example, lease holdover provisions that will ultimately impact their bottom lines, or they have perhaps financing that are impacted when construction projects are significantly delayed. And so it's a major issue for us. It's a major issue for our clients, and we look to help them navigate all of those, and particularly bringing the project team to the table to help figure out how to deal with those issues.
Are there any particular materials that seem to be more vulnerable to shortages than others? I mean, I keep hearing about concrete. I keep hearing about steel to a certain extent. But what's been your experience in terms of materials? And have your clients been inclined to switch vendors even if they have long-term relationships? I mean, I'm trying to get a sense here of how they're dealing with the material shortages and what products seem to be most susceptible to this.
Yeah, absolutely. So there are three projects. We've got a 60,000 square foot restoration project in Brooklyn. We're involved in a 70,000 square foot major restoration project in the Bronx, and we have a church facility going through restoration in Midtown Manhattan. And I can tell you, one of the materials that continues to come up as an issue is roof insulation. We're now looking at a 6-month delay on getting roof insulation on site, and our contractors are looking at alternate approaches, alternate material to satisfy the specifications to try and get around this 6 months delay. We were lucky. We had one project that was able to purchase the material required early on, just before that time frame when the delay hit and the supply chain began to really getting overwhelmed. And it was still much later than expected, but we were able to get our roofing material. This was for a school project in Midtown, and we were able to get it and be able to open the school in September as planned. but we have another project, the project in the Bronx, where it's significantly delayed, and we're having to look around to see what other opportunities are available. So to answer your question, absolutely, we're looking at alternates. Our contractors have been very open to speaking with their suppliers. Another item is light fixtures.
Huh.
That's also, we're coming across, we finished a theater project just recently as they were planning to reopen a theater in Midtown. And we had a light fixture that was critical to a particular zone in the space. And that fixture was significantly delayed. And the contractor was able to speak with their supplier and find an alternate that could be locally sourced and readily available, because what was previously specified was several months out. So, so absolutely, design teams are willing to look at alternate options. Contractors are speaking with their suppliers, and a couple of other things I want to just highlight. Interestingly, plumbing fixtures, particularly items, anything that is in the realm of no touch, hands-free, with
Mm-hmm.
hands-free features. As you can imagine, across the country, there's a delay and shortage of those materials because everyone is essentially, including education facilities, the major theatrical houses. So many organizations, so many buildings are looking to retrofit towards hands-free, and so there's a shortage of that. Interestingly, on the technology side, when you think about cameras, all of the technology components that go into education facilities, anyone that wants to perform live streaming or push material online, as we all have now transitioned to that arena, on that platform, to producing online. Any of the supplies, any of the products that essentially play into that are now also essentially being encumbered by the delays, and so it's been challenging, and it's something that we've had to work through with our clients to work out how to get around the technology pieces.
Just out of
Um,
curiosity, when you were talking about the light fixture for this theater and you were looking for a substitute, what might constitute that substitute? I mean, in terms of, is it a completely different light or a variation of what they were going to put in, or what when you're looking for a substitution, or let's say for roofing, for example, roofing insulation, or lighting or plumbing, or the examples that you gave, what are the criteria that you use to determine that this is a good substitute for your client?
Yeah, it's a good question. I mean, for roofing, of course, you have to be able to meet all of the code requirements, and design team has to review that against any of the alternates, against the specifications, various ISO ratings that need to be met, and that is really important. It also creates a challenge. It's, you may have other products out there that might be available, but does it meet the particular requirement for that particular
Yeah.
set of circumstances, that particular code? And so it does mean that all of the parties involved, the design teams, the engineers, have to be involved in reviewing that material and the specifications to make sure it works. The light fixture, interesting. Yeah, we had what was meant to be particularly high hats,
Hmm.
and we were open to looking at a pendant fixture. It just so happens that this particular zone, the zones that we were looking into, we realized could accommodate pendant fixtures, wall washers that could also go in lieu of the hi hats, and achieve that requirement from an aesthetic point of view. So we looked at that, and we looked at alternate hi-hats, alternate manufacturers. And what we ultimately landed with was we continued to look at a shallower, a different set of a hi-hat that still worked for this particular situation. But yes, we are open to reviewing and really rethinking the design specifications for spaces.
Mhm.
Um, and sometimes there's repercussions to that, right? Um, on the roofing side, the materials that we're currently looking at changes the thickness of our roof material, the ultimately the height of that level, that floor level, and essentially changing our door our door spec, our framing around the door that's leading into the roof. And so there's there are
Yeah.
so many other aspects to it that we have to review and then weigh those options between from as far as the schedule and perhaps the cost impacts of making that switch.
Mhm. You know,
But
I
it's what
keep
our clients want us to do.
Mhm. You know, I keep hearing from all the contractors that I interview is that they're really concerned about the shortage in skilled labor. You know, there's not a lot of people that are coming into the business right now, and you know, they're sort of at betwixt and between right now. What in your estimation it would be a solution, short term and long term, to this problem? And do you think developers can do anything to ameliorate it?
That's a great question. Thank you, John. I think we are, at Denham Wolf, we work with a number of nonprofits that are involved in the community, many of whom offer some level of workforce development
Uh-huh.
and training. And beyond that, the projects that we're involved in have a high level of public sector funding as well. And what we've always argued for, even prior to this shortage in labor, and what we've always advocated with our clients is the idea of utilizing workforce, those programs that are involved in workforce development, utilizing local labor. Our clients are in communities, areas where there's high need, high unemployment, and to the extent that there is a program locally that develops skilled trade, we want to involve we want to involve individuals coming out of those programs as much as possible. And so we always seek to exceed the requirements of the funding source
Mhm.
that might come for this project. So I guess I think it's important to look at alternate approaches to sourcing labor, and then also continuing to develop programs for training and continuing to engage in these alternate sources. They're out there. We, for example, are working with an organization called Osborne, and they have a workforce development program. And prior to redeveloping their building, they asked, is it possible for the contractor that we select to perhaps bring on or utilize some of that workforce because they're out there looking for work as they're getting training?
Yeah.
And so we absolutely implemented that in that project. And it's currently underway. We're looking forward to, at the end of this project, to be able to understand the impact and how much what the hiring looks like and how many labor hours we were able to produce. But I do think these are the opportunities. I think if as a whole we look to alternate ways of sourcing labor that is out there, that is looking for work and looking for training, I think it will go a long ways towards helping the problem.
Mhm. Your firm has been in business since 1998, so you've seen a lot of ups and downs. A lot of economists are predicting that the industry is poised for a rebound in 2022. And kind of what's your viewpoint here, right? And what are you anticipating business to be like going into and proceeding in next year?
I think we tend to agree, and we're very we have a level of optimism for 2022 and the future years. So we're entering 2022 with quite a bit of optimism. Although I do think we anticipate what is more of a gradual ramp up of construction activity. You have across the country the potential for per the federal infrastructure bill, the potential for again increasing construction activity to the extent that we're getting around to it. We also have states looking at storm hardening and improving resiliency. So from the construction and the infrastructure point of view, we think the construction industry is expected to see some increase. But there's also this continued need as office workers are coming back to work, re-entering back to the office, I should say. We have this existing building stock, particularly in cities like New York City, where we have an older building stock that needs continued improvement and needs to continue to also develop safer, healthier environments. That is something that we see developers, owners are looking to, because to attract office workers, attract all of the businesses out there that are looking for space, you're going to need to develop healthier buildings. And so for that, from that point of view, we're optimistic. And lastly, I'll say, there's been lots of talk of investors and cash sitting on the sideline and waiting for opportunities to invest. And we believe that is something that has been, that will also impact the future as the opportunities become available. There is cash out there that is looking to real estate and looking to invest in real estate.
Ron, let me ask you lastly, aside from shortages, what are the one or two biggest potential impediments for your developer clients that you're keeping an eye on to make sure that they're ready if in the event that they pop up?
Yeah, I mean, so the big elephant in the room is COVID, right? I mean, that's going to continue to have an impact on development if we don't get our arms around it. Beyond that, of course, the labor shortage is something that absolutely will have an impact. And construction pricing, and it's all sort of related, right? And I think if we're hearing about the escalation in pricing, and we've had the recent ups and downs of wood pricing significantly increasing and so forth. You mentioned steel earlier, and I think there's the escalation price, if we're able to essentially gain control of that, will definitely impact developers' interest. But also there's legislation, the impact of legislation around buildings, particularly. So in New York City, for example, we have the likely ending of 421A, which is a tax abatement program for building affordable housing. And so but generally across the country, when we look at the impact of legislation and how it might potentially decrease or the viability of development, I think that's key. And I think as we go through transitions of various administration, as we have new individuals, new elected officials coming into the fray, and essentially putting in their imprint, I think that is something that we're also looking at very closely, particularly for our clients, who essentially tend to also partner with major developers in the city when doing projects. And so legislation is a major potential support or impediment in some ways to the growth of real estate.
Well, Ron, thanks for taking a couple minutes to talk to us about this topic.
Thank you, John. Really appreciate you having us join you.
And thanks to our audience for turning in. This is John Caulfield from Building, Design, and Construction Magazine.